Hi, guys. This is Alex Costa from ANR Design. This is the Unholstered podcast, episode 10, and our guest today is Tim, the owner of Albert Defense. Albert Defense is an apparel company, merch company, patches, pins, hats, shirts, you name it, stickers, but it has music-related, hardcore New Jersey East Coast roots. So all of Tim's products have a very, very classic, what you would see on a merch table at a local show vibe, and he's bringing a different aesthetic to the hype beast, the really cool niche quality apparel that are hitting this industry right now. And people don't understand the musical influences. A lot of people don't understand the musical influences. A lot of people that follow Tim like his apparel because they recognize his niche, his aesthetic from their childhood. And we're going to talk about the roots of, Tim's roots and what influenced him growing up. We're the same age, and we got into very similar music. And that's what he does. He makes badass merch, and he has gun industry parallels and music parallels. And we're going to talk about music and the influence in the gun industry and how it really has a really strong influence in our industry. So anyway, Tim, take it away. Tell us about yourself, your influences, and your business.
Oh, thank you for having me on, Alex. I've been doing Albert Defense for about 2.5, almost 3 years now. I got started because I wanted to do something for myself as a creative outlet. I worked 10 years in traditional marketing, a lot of it in pharmaceuticals, some of it in consumer goods, but regardless, not in areas where I'm able to express myself and do stuff that I'm interested in. So Albert Defense originally started as an outlet for that. It's, if anyone hasn't yet, it's awesome to make money for yourself doing your own thing. I think if I had my way, I'd love to do hard goods at some point, if I ever have a good idea that fits a niche. But honestly, merch has a very low barrier of entry. You can run stickers for, maybe $200 tops. They don't take up a lot of room. They're easy to ship. And it's a great place for people to start if they want to try their hand at something. And, not a slight to anybody that does it, but screen printing merch isn't too complicated. Getting patches and pins made isn't too complicated. And it's just a great place to start doing your own thing and expressing yourself. And then as far as the hardcore and gun connection, I've been shooting since I was about 11 or 12 and probably got into, punk, boy, and hardcore music around the same time. So, I'm about 20 years in on both. So it's just the obvious choice for doing something like this.
Oh yeah, dude. It's so nice to see those designs. We talk about the nostalgia of the scene. My background from Cape Cod, Cape Hardcore, grew up, went to my first show with my friend Annie from school. She was our hockey goalie, and we used to host Irish kids from Northern Ireland, Protestant Catholic growing up, and we would introduce them to each other and teach them that they're the same people. They have slightly different beliefs, but they're ultimately the same people. They love playing FIFA. They support different soccer teams, and that's okay. And get them involved and working and introduced to each other so they can go back and say, hey, those Protestants aren't so bad, or oh, those Catholics, they're really not that different from us. And the difference between Catholicism and Protestant is so fucking easy between the two. It's not so polarizing. Why the fuck do we kill each other? And so I went to my first show, Wareham Skate Park, Cape Cod. Bunch of good bands played. They had a skate park there. I watched a dude with a blue mohawk get his fucking face smashed in. I love the music. I'm originally like a classic rock, punk rock, Dead Kennedys. Like my dad loves Talking Heads, Dead Kennedys, and Cars, right? My mom is The Who, Led Zeppelin. She, at 8 years old, she brought me to a Tom Petty show. I've been going to shows since I was a child, and then at 12 years old, they dropped me off at the skate park thinking it's just like chill. And these dudes got into a fight. This guy got his face knocked in. They brought out a mattress and they lit it on fire in the middle of the fucking skate park during the show. And then people are running across a burning mattress indoors, and there's no fire suppression inside an enclosed indoor skate park. And I left that show just like, oh my God, I need to keep going to these fucking shows. Like there was no violence in my life other than like hockey and just like run of the mill shit. And I always got beat up for listening to classic rock and liking bands and classic hip hop. And everyone, we're re-recording this podcast because we fucked it up the first time. Not we, I fucked it up the first time. And you were talking about like Limp Bizkit and Korn and Insane Clown Posse was a huge influence in my area, and I got bullied because I wasn't into that stuff. I thought it was garbage. I was like, this is trash. Like, I listen to Led Zeppelin, but I got bullied because all the popular kids believed in it, and that was the thing. And then I started going to hardcore shows, and I was like, man, this is so much fucking cooler than everything. Like, I'm hooked, gotta go. So I'm sure your story is very similar. So tell us a little bit about your story and the influences that brought you into music culture.
All right, so I came in from, the punk and oi music side. So where I grew up, North Jersey, we had this guy, Doug, in town that ran a record store. He had a record label called Squig Tone, and he fronted an oi band called Squiggy, which was really kind of much more hardcore leaning than, a lot of the English stuff that people might be familiar with. So if anyone out there listening has a chance, check out Squiggy. But they were like, they were hot shit in my town. They were the big guys. And that was really my first love. So, I got into punk, I got into oi music. Those were a lot of my first shows. A lot of the kids I first hung out with. We had a record label in North Jersey called Headache Records. They were around from the late 80s to maybe 2008, but they put out a lot of awesome oi and street punk music. They had bands like Broken Heroes, Henbane, Wretched Ones, Head Wound. Some of those may be familiar to you guys. I think it was like a big export for us in North Jersey at the time. But I wasn't going to shows that long before that scene kind of died out. And really what came to replace it, or what was left, because it was already happening, was hardcore. And at the time, coming from that punk background, it sounded like metal. I really wasn't into it. And what I was mentioning before about Korn and Limp Bizkit, if you're listening to the Foreskins or the Business, something like E-Town Concrete sounds like Korn. Like, you can't really find the difference between E-Town and Limp Bizkit. But as I mentioned before, at that time, the internet wasn't what it is now. You didn't have Spotify, you didn't have Bandcamp. You had MySpace, but it wasn't as robust as any of the social media right now. And you had LimeWire and Napster and shit like that, but it would take all day to download a record.
Oh, yeah.
So your main exposure was the stuff that was playing at shows around you. The merch tables and distros at the shows that you go to were the music you were exposed to. And at the time, that a lot of that was hardcore. We had Club Chrome, Birch Hill. There were these Central Jersey clubs that were fucking hard as shit. And bands like E-Town, Blood for Blood, One for One.
Yeah, Blood for Blood. Sorry.
I meant NJ Blood. Blood for Blood is sick too, but I meant NJ Blood.
Okay. I was like, that's Boston. Okay. All right. What?
But you have these, heavy fucking hardcore bands. And, they're all wearing like 3X t-shirts and like Janko jeans, and you're like, what the fuck is this? But, that shit grows on you because it's all that's around you.
Jinko jeans and hardcore, dude. I don't think I've ever seen that.
In Jersey, anyway.
Insane Clown Posse kids wore Jinkos, and my mom was like, "Fuck those stupid jeans. You're not wearing a dress to school. Like, wear these fucking Levi's or Wranglers. Like, they fit well." Oh yeah, hell yeah.
But I mean, I think American Nightmare showed up and brought in the tight pants. But anyway, so you have this heavy fucking hardcore that's kind of, for me, like, hard to differentiate from like the kids who are into porn and shit, but it grows on you. I think also getting me into hardcore, I mentioned at the time, Agnostic Front was on Hellcat Records, and Lars Fredrickson was producing all their shit, and that was their street punk phase. So they would have tracks on all these Oi compilations.
Right.
So they were kind of the first hardcore band I got into, and from there you get into Madball, Sick of It All, kind of like the entry points for a lot of people. But I still love it all. Like, I don't consider myself exclusively a hardcore kid. But that's kind of how I got into it. And then I also mentioned before, the first time around that, my experience in hardcore kind of influenced my thought on self-defense and firearms and gear and that kind of shit, because you would go to a show and you'd see dudes get stabbed and you'd see dudes flash a pistol. We'd go out to Oi shows in the Lehigh Valley, and there'd be like 20 Nazi dudes that were not ashamed, and they were flying their swastikas proudly. And they all had knives and guns, and you realize that the world is a dangerous place, and it's a much more violent place than you're exposed to in suburbia. And you realize that it's kind of on you to provide for your own safety.
I agree. It's one of those things where you witness extreme violence. I think you were talking about FSU earlier in our previous recording. I'm having every fucking problem today. Like, my camera froze. I have these little cam links. It connects like a 4K Sony camera. What happens is they eventually overheat because they're like permanently running even when your computer's off. And my cam link decided to take a shit. So while you were talking there, I switched cam links, and now my camera's working because the camera froze. So this is like the podcast that doesn't want to be a podcast, but we're running. Yeah, man. I remember seeing. We didn't have a huge Nazi scene because we have FSU was super influential in our area, and we had JV, like the JV FSU, which were the up and comers in their own little gang. So when people hear us talk about like FSU and we drop 3-letter acronym pit crews, they were pit crews. They were literally gangs. FSU was on gangland. We got some gangland vibes right now because you're hiding off screen, but no, it's we grew up with gangs. Like, we had our own pit crews locally on Cape, and people would carry colored bandanas in their back pocket or wear them over their face at shows so they could commit acts of violence and hide themselves. And they got to a point where, like, oh, if you see a bandana hanging out of someone's pocket, there's a smiley in there, which is tying a padlock into your bandana so you can use it as essentially a modern day mace, low-vis mace. And we grew up, like, I carried a smiley. I used to carry it in my pants and tuck my bandana around my belt because you get into shows and you have to get pat down for weapons. But some asshole's going to let some asshole in the back door with a knife or a gun, and there might be an altercation between pit crews, and I never associated with one. There was people that were trying to start them, and there was initiation processes, and obviously you're into the hardcore scene, you're just like, oh, it's just some stupid kids trying to like get some bros to hang out and wear the same colors. But then, like, as an adult, you look back and you're like, no, we were literally trying to commit gang violence. Like, that was our childhood. It was getting involved in the stupid shit. And we had a local one in town called OMD. this pet pedo type dude tried starting one, and he was like 22, always hitting on 14-year-olds. He was disgusting. And there was a lot of like pedophilia. That dude, yeah, like you get the dudes in bands that are 22, and you get these 15-year-old girls that are swooning over them, and it's like there was a ton of fucking creepy ass lurking dudes in hardcore, and I just remember I recognized how horrible shit was, and all I wanted to do was fight these dudes, and all we did was fight. You know, I broke my nose 8 times, had surgery, fixed everything in my nose, which didn't actually fix shit. Had everything cut out of my head. I've broken my jaw. I've lost fucking chip teeth. Never got stabbed, but you know, we were talking earlier. You've witnessed stabbings. I've witnessed stabbings. I remember being at the Axis in Boston, and then like a bouncer getting killed a week later after a show. Boston Beatdown coming out on DVD, which, if people don't know, is a bunch of FSU bands like Call of Arabia, Cutthroat, all these Blood for Blood, Death Before Dishonor. But they put out pretty much a DVD of candid video, someone running around with a video camera. But this is before camera cell phones, but they would run around and just fight people. Like Colin Campbell straight up like jumped Moby in Boston outside of his limo on video, beat the shit out of Moby, and ran away and got away with it. Now, he got caught 2 felonies later on, went to jail twice. He's a local dude. He's a handyman. We bump into each other all the time. Used to get haircuts at the same place, and it's like, that's fucking Colin Campbell. What the fuck? You know, first time I bumped into a barbershop, and now we talk all the time. But, I mean, it was violent, dude. There was our homies would come down from Boston, and it was just like we were straight edge when we were real young. I don't identify as straight edge for the past 20 years, but there was a time I put X's on my hands, and you know, we used to get fights with college kids. You know, 22-year-old college kids coming out of bars, just being like, "Why the fuck you drunk?" You know, you gonna drive home right now? I had friends that would beat drunks up so they wouldn't drive home. You know, because we've lost friends to drunk driving. So like you have that super. If you look back, there's so much camaraderie in hardcore. You know, you go to a show, you go to a pit, you get your shit pushed in, and then you get picked up by everyone around you, and like you paid your dues. It's okay, but then there was like a toxicity about it too. Like we had hardline dudes that we knew that we tried to avoid, and hardline versus straight edge is people that won't even take Tylenol for like a headache. They won't touch stuff, and they're hyper violent, and they don't realize they won't touch caffeine. If they go to the hospital, no narcotics, but they don't realize that getting into fights is releasing endorphins. They're chasing highs because all they do is fight.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they're just adrenaline junkies. They are addicts. So the hardline dudes are the biggest addicts I've ever met in my life, and I'm sure these people ended up being heroin junkies later on. Luckily, when we were kids, we didn't have that heroin vibe in the scene, but a lot of my friends growing up that are in the hardcore were into the hardcore scene, got into pit crews, which essentially became gangs, and then they started selling drugs to fund what they needed for their gangs, and then they ended up junkies throwing needles in their arms. And I've lost friends to heroin overdose. I have a bunch of friends that have come back from ODs that are, you know, super straight edge now that you know, are former addicts that are advocates that have changed the community locally. But man, you're so involved in the music, you love the music, and it pumps you up and you feel it, and then you end up just throwing everything away because it's a bunch of alpha dudes, wannabe alpha dudes in one area trying to show how fucking tough they are.
And it has always attracted people from difficult backgrounds.
Absolutely. And people from not difficult backgrounds. You get dudes that have never seen violence that get fucked up. Well, it's like Fight Club, right? The movie Fight Club, the book Fight Club from Chuck Palahniuk. You got a dude that's so sterile, populating his office with things that people tell him to buy. And then he, you know, it's obviously in his head in the movie, but he gets into a fight and feels for the first time. You know, you get ton of kids that were from suburbia that came up with great upbringings that ended up being the most violent people I've ever met in my life because they were so sheltered and they just wanted to fucking feel getting punched in the face, breaking things, bleeding, and then they go into these pits and they start hurting people and they feel different. They feel like a sense of reward from how many dudes they fucking hurt that night, or oh, I broke this dude's jaw. You know, I went to the hospital. Fuck that dude. You know, just like, whoa, all right. So you got a ton of toxicity mixed with people that actually are there for the music, and I tried to find that balance between like, you know, you had to go in the pit if you were at shows all the time. Like you could spectate, but every once in a while you get some bully type, alpha type dudes that are like, fuck you, you're a pussy, you're always watching. And then you go in the pit, you fuck a couple dudes up, you're like, all right, fuck you, I'm going to go back to watching from the sidelines. Because I'm here for the music. I'm not here to get into fights and break my face all the time and, you know, get stabbed eventually, because it's going to happen. Like if you keep putting yourself in those fucking toxic situations, you're going to get hurt. I mean, exactly. Like I went to Romans once, and Blood for Blood was playing, and I don't know if people know what Romans is, but it was in Brockton, Tigers Den. I went there once, and I watched the dude get stabbed like 4 times. And I was like, cool. I want to go watch Blood for Blood and not get fucking stabbed.
Yeah, it's intimidating, man. Especially, like you said, if you're from a suburban background and you're not exposed to violence like that, it's intimidating. But it's very exciting.
Adrenaline jumping.
I think we're of an age where we were entering high school post-Columbine.
Right.
And there was this kind of, I think there was this mentality among school administrators that any kind of physical violence among students, any kind of bullying was not tolerated at all. So I think whereas maybe probably even as soon as 5 years before we were in high school, guys would get out a lot of that aggression. We were maybe not allowed to. You know, a fight at school was potentially criminal.
Yeah, expulsion and criminal for sure.
So a hardcore show was the only place to get that kind of action. I think I've always been a big kid. You know, I think I was maybe like 5'8" and over 200 pounds when I was in 8th grade. But, you know, so I never got bullied. I never felt unsafe really in a pit. But, you know, for a lot of, you know, small guys and guys with a chip on their shoulder, it's a place you go to express yourself in that way. And, you know, I think people ask me a lot, like, you know, why do so many hardcore dudes become cops? And I think there's a parallel there.
Yeah, I think so too. There's a complex. There's a lot of people that never felt adequate in their personal lives as children. I mean, I was horrifically bullied growing up because my first show was Tom Petty at 8 years old. My mom took me to Jethro Tull at 9. I saw The Who with Robert Plant and Billy Idol when I was 10. I grew up listening to like the legends and witnessing the legends. I've seen The Who 8 times. And you grew up in the same time, Jinko jeans, soaps, fucking Insane Clown Posse, Limp Bizkit, Korn. If you didn't listen to those bands, you were a poser. If you bought anything remotely close to any of that and you weren't popular, you were a poser. I was small in 5th and 6th grade at the time, 5.5 shoe, real lightweight. And then I had a growth spurt, dude. I grew like 1.5 foot in a year. And I went from a 5.5 shoe to a fucking 13 in a year. And I took the dudes that would bully me and shit, and they weren't into like the hardcore scene yet, which is funny. Yet is the play there. I got into the scene when I was 12. We had Irish kids that we host, and then we went to that show, and I started going to shows. And some of the older kids that were older brothers of these bullies would see me at shows and just be like, Costa's going to fucking shows. What the fuck are you doing? You're busy playing video games, jerking off, and telling people they're fucking posers. And masturbator was a diss that went around when we were 5th and 6th grade. You're a masturbator. Like, I'd ask my buddy's older brother, what's a masturbator? It's when you stroke a cock, dude. Like, oh, okay, cool. Thanks for the feedback.
That's the first I've heard that one.
Yeah, dude. No, but you know what's funny? The dude that invented that was a shitbag. I went back through like 1st grade. I have used to illustrate and write sentences about something that bothers us. Like, what bothers you at school? And I was like, Chris Barnes likes to pack rocks into snowballs and throw them at me. And that dude ended up being like the lead singer of a hardcore band, and he was a bully in hardcore. He used to punch chicks in the face. Like, my buddy's band was getting scouted for a record label. He knew it. The lady was like 45, blonde, 5'2", 130 pounds. And he fucking crowd moshed her and broke her jaw and knocked her out so she couldn't witness the show, so they wouldn't get signed because he wanted his buddy's band to get signed. Like, he was a bully to death, right? And his mom was a fucking bus driver, and she was the nicest lady ever. And he played hockey. He was always in penalty box for hurting people. He ended up being he cleaned his shit up, had kids, ended up being a radio host for a hip hop radio, and got his life together. But it was like you had these like strange parallels, but like the popular crowd growing up, once they started getting into hardcore, then it was cool for the whole school. And you're like, wait a minute, bro, you were not here 5 years ago.
A couple times.
Yeah, but like, dude, it was always a pissing contest. We were going to these shows to express ourselves, right? And then it becomes cool. And I guess like now a lot of the aesthetic of a lot of the dudes that are pushing merch right now are hardcore kids. Like hardcore oi, like your aesthetic. Forward Observations, those dudes are always posting pop punk and hardcore and like brand new and emo on their videos. You got Corey from Sup Def. Corey used to fucking troll the B9 board back in the day. Like, he was West Coast B9 big dick freak. And he was always music elitisting people on the B9 boards back in the day. And that's why I recognized fucking name. We met like 7 years ago at SHOT Show. And it's just Corey, man. Like, Corey's like that epitome of West Coast hip hop hardcore, and the parallels between hardcore. People don't understand how much there's parallels between like Jedi Mind Tricks, and I remember Jedi Mind Tricks had so many parallels to hardcore, Trapped Under Ice and shit. Like it was like 2001, 2002. Everyone in hardcore. If you're not listening to Jedi Mind Tricks, you're just like, you're not on that hip hop vibe either. But it was fucking cool. So,
when you mentioned like porn and shit, it made me think that aside from being a release, I had parents that were kind of vigilant. They were careful about what I was exposed to, and they relied a lot on that parental warning. So, shit from porn, Slipknot, whatever the fuck, that would all come from a major label with a parental warning on it. But none of the punk stuff, none of the hardcore stuff, anything from a small label didn't have that on it.
Right.
The radar. So I think that was big for me too.
Hell yeah. And you talked about LimeWire, and you talked about the download rates being slow as fuck. But yeah, you're 100% right. Not to mention going to shows and buying fucking burned CDs off the merch tables. You could accumulate a really, really great collection of music going to local shows and just buying local, because those dudes are recording on old PCs and editing the most ghetto way possible, but they're burning. What was the fucking popular burning software back in the day? It was, I forget, but...
I always used the Windows utility.
Yeah, the Windows utility. But there was another one that was popular for a while when Windows utility would always bug out. But yeah, it's just like, or someone at school, they printed CDs. Here you go. And they would print the fucking shitty stick-on labels, and you would just get them in a clear CD case, and just like, $5, you can listen to the new press. And you're just like, all right, cool, fuck it.
He's fallen a long way, and I'm not saying that Rick Life isn't a total piece of shit.
Yes.
But in New York, New Jersey, whenever he was at a show with his distro, he had shit all over the United States. And it's shit he probably stole from the bands without paying for.
Yep.
But it was an awesome way to get exposed to all kinds of stuff that you never would have found otherwise. I grew up in kind of a rural area, so our internet was always shitty. And like you mentioned the V9 boards, like I never got into the V9 boards.
Right.
I'm a computer kid. And, maybe after like my contemporaries were like getting online, like I was still finding shit out from liner notes.
Okay.
So, going to a show and hitting up Rick's Distro and like getting like a couple like burned CDs that sometimes wouldn't have the music on them they were supposed to.
Right.
Or cassettes, but that was an awesome way to get exposed to stuff. And I think kids now, they don't know about distros. But you used to go to a show and there were tables set up with 7-inch cassettes, CDs. And I'd go to a show with like every little bit of cash I could scrape up, $20, whatever. And I would just spend it all on stuff that looked cool.
Right.
You didn't even necessarily know what it was, but if the cover looked good, you bought it. And it was really exciting, and it was like a treasure hunt. And I think it's disappointing, that kids getting into it now don't have that same experience. But I guess the benefits outweigh, because they have access to so much. But that was just so awesome. Another awesome aspect of punk and hardcore in this music. I guess when I'm thinking about merch and shit, I think about how much, that album art got me into certain things, and how much that visual stuff plays a role. And I guess I try to work that into the stuff I do. I haven't really thought about it much until now, but I think that's probably a big influence.
Yeah, absolutely. You can see the parallels like from a mile away. It was funny because like Autoseer turned me on to your stuff, and I was like, he's like, yeah, dude, check out Albert Defense. You're gonna love that stuff. And I was
like, he's been on board early.
He's a fucking rad dude, like proper Florida man. He's rad as fuck. I love hanging out with him and spend time with him. He's cool, but like, dude, it's true. Your parallels are there, and it's a different aesthetic than what you're getting from all the other big companies right now. Like when I say big companies, I mean Warm and Fuzzy, Sup Def, Fog, the Hypebeast stuff, the influences there. Yours are this very raw, unfiltered, and this is not an insulting way. They're purposefully unpolished. They're not, like your logo, your Black Hand logo is polished as fuck. But your shirts you come out with, they have that gritty, Xerox copied, band. Oh, there's a show, my first show, I still have the flyer. The original kids would print it out at school. They'd sneak into the principal's office and run the copier and put out, fucking flyers everywhere. Printed black background, white letters, really shitty Photoshop job. You have that graininess to it, that film grain from the Xerox. And you have that vibe to your stuff. It has that grittiness, that East Coast hardcore punk oi vibe going to shows. Every time you look at something that you produce, it gives you that nostalgia, like, holy fuck, there's a show coming up. And we appreciate that.
Like less than high school, that we had an awesome graphic arts program. Where we learned how to do photography, we learned how to screen print, we learned how to run an offset press, we learned how to do a lino cut. So I was able to call back to a lot of that stuff doing this, and that's been really fun. That's something I always loved, but kind of lost touch with.
Yeah, I was playing on my phone earlier, and not to discredit our conversation, but I was playing on it because someone sent me a fucking flyer for Madball. It was Madball, Cruel Hand, and Death Before Dishonor in New Hampshire on June 26th, and we're getting tickets, and it would be a great weekend for you to come visit.
Absolutely.
That would be a really fucking cool weekend. And it's at Hampton, which is, I want to book a fucking overhead because you get access to the pit, but then you get like drink service too because I'm old and I don't want to die. My hands are more fragile than they used to. Been to a couple shows in the last few years, and my fucking hands, man. Like, I have so many boxers fractures all over my knuckles. My knuckles are so fucking flat and swollen. And I was in like Hell's Kitchen 2 years ago at a show, and dude, I left and I couldn't feel my fingertips for the next day because I was like, man, I fucking hit so many people. And I just can't, I don't have the stamina to roll shows anymore, especially, I mean, we're all getting old. I guess the crowd at that will be old as fuck at Hampton.
That'd be weird standing in the back.
Yeah, but we will, but we won't. You know, like, I remember going to Dropkick Murphys on St. Patrick's Day in Boston and Madball opening, like at the Access.
Murphy's a little bit different. I think we would probably be the average age at a Murphy show.
I think we'd be the average age at a Death Before Dishonor Madball show, though.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, like these dudes are getting fucking old, man. I mean, shit, they're only, what, 5 or 6 years older than us, but still, like, nearing 40s. Like, you're going to get maybe a younger crowd for Cruel Hand.
I sat in traffic for like an hour. It took forever to fucking park, but I caught like the last 20 minutes of that Tompkins Square Park show.
Yeah.
There's a lot of fucking old dudes.
It is, though. It is a lot of old dudes now.
New York hardcore, especially. Skews a little bit older. But, I mean, it depends on the show. I go to some, Perth Amboy, New Jersey has a pretty sick scene. And it's closed now, unfortunately. There's this Mexican bar called Copa de Oro. They used to have shows at all the time. And I think I was by far the oldest dude there. It was always a little bit weird, but the music was good.
Hell yeah, dude. That's like the Middle East for us. There was a Middle Eastern restaurant in Boston called the Middle East, and they had an open basement, and they used to have fucking gangster-ass shows there. Like, bad-ass shows that everyone would go to. Like, underground hip-hop, hardcore. They had an indie scene, and they would almost have, like, theme nights there. And some huge bands played there, too. Like, absolutely huge bands. Like, growing up on Cape, we had... Sons of Italy. It was an Italian VFW style venue, but it had a really big open dance floor, and it was like $5 entry. But Bury Your Dead played, Death Before Dishonor played, 25 to Life, Hoods. We had like traveling bands on tour actually roll through because you get the whole Boston crew, you get the New Bedford crew, all the Taunton. South Boston guys would all come down for it because they would do a Cape show and then they'd do a Boston show. So you would get the super OG FSU dudes, the super violent dudes would roll through, hang out for a couple bands, Cutthroat, Back of the Neck, Colin Arabia, Since the Flood. It was great. Like, we never had bad bands play. We had a bunch of great local bands too that could have gone very far if they stuck with it. But you're a kid and someone fucks someone else's girlfriend, or someone breaks edge because they were at a party with another band and then the bands break up and over the dumbest shit ever. But when you have these super talented artists, but I mean, I'm sure you saw the same shit happen in New Jersey. I don't know much about the New Jersey scene whatsoever. We could never afford it, like we were saving up for. I could afford like McDonald's, or if we went to Palladium, like in Worcester, that was an hour and a half each way. Like, I could afford like a small 12-piece chicken at Wings Over Worcester after going to a show at the Palladium and like limping home. And dude, I can only give you $15 for gas, and that was back when gas was like 99 cents. So, we saved up all our money that we had available for disposable income. And it was, like you said, dropping what you had in your wallet on merch, new CDs, and essentially new opportunities as a kid to express yourself. So
new opportunities to find stuff, but that was always fun. It was always an adventure. But you'd always have someone's like big sister that could drive you somewhere. I mean, where I grew up in Jersey, and people may not realize that, but there are parts of Jersey that are so rural. There's nothing even resembling public transportation.
Right.
So really you needed a car to get anywhere. So, maybe you convince your parents to drive you somewhere, or at least drive you far enough that you can hop a bus or something, to get into the city. But, we had an awesome local scene too, which I've always been very grateful for. a lot of the guys from Adrenaline OD. Some people may know. I think they're arguably Jersey's biggest hardcore band, other than maybe the Misfits. But like all of those guys lived with. So they would play like reunion shows, and they would start other bands, and they would all play locally. And we'd see them, and we'd pick their brains about like New Jersey hardcore history. Like I said, we had that awesome Oi scene where you'd be able to see shows 15, 20 minutes away. That your parents would have no problem dropping you off at. And then, like I said, eventually, some of us would get driver's licenses, or you'd have someone's, older brother drive you. But we'd head down to Central Jersey, Club Chrome and Brookville. There was always a lot of shows at the Mandeville Elks Lodge. The same thing as like the Sons of Italy, which to go off on a tangent. Not that those shows ever went away, but I think we're going to see a lot more of those come back now.
I hope so.
Knights of Columbus, just because a lot of venues shut down.
Right.
But the VFW is always going to be there. They probably haven't been generating a lot of revenue over the last year.
I bet they have, though. Private drinks, at least in New Hampshire, you can smoke in VFWs up here. You get dollar drinks as a member. You pay your membership dues. Like, it was a way that you couldn't regulate it through COVID because it's a private club.
Yeah, that's the gym I go to in Jersey. Yeah.
That's cool.
I don't actually meant anything legally, but they declared themselves a private club.
True, but it works. Legally, it does protect
They
you.
locked out the windows and everyone kept their mouth shut.
That's the way, dude. That's the way it has to be. People. You know what the nice thing about hardcore is? No matter who you are, what walk of life you come from, there's a sense of community there. The Taunton dudes had some of the hardest dudes on the scene. They had their own pit crews, essentially their own gangs, like we said earlier. But I had from Cape, we had Adam Pont. Dude is he's from Qatar, not Qatar. Oh my God, what's the city in India? He was an adopted Indian. Him and his sister were adopted Indian kids, and he's in a hardcore. We had Vegan Keegan. He was our gay friend from Taunton, who I watched smash a dude's head in a car door for calling him something awful. I've watched him beat the shit out of an entire band because they were a publicly racist band that someone stupidly booked, and he incited a riot at a show, and the cops showed up and arrested half the people. But he beat dudes to near death with a fucking folding chair for calling him the F word. And we grew up with these people that were harder than anyone you'll see in the influencer community on social media gun industry. Like dudes that actually grew up fucking smashing dudes to near life every weekend for 10 years. So, sorry, go ahead.
A lot of influencers that I'm not afraid of, but I wouldn't say a cross word to Danny Diablo.
Yeah, right. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's just like I saw Vegan Keegan at a show maybe 7 or 8 years ago. It was like the Warriors opened for like Parkway Drive, and I was there for like the Warriors, and he was in the pit, shirtless, steel-toed boots, tight jeans, thick-ass leather belt with a huge-ass belt buckle that he ended up whipping a dude with. And he has this like lion's or tiger's head tattooed on his stomach, and he was just stomping dudes out, and it's just like, man, things never fucking change. It was tough though. Like a lot of these pit crews, essentially they're gangs, right? I mean, they're gangs. They're gangs. FSU was on fucking gangland. It's funny watching FSU, and then they showed that Moby footage with Colin Campbell, and then just being sitting there in the barbershop and just being like, what the fuck is Colin getting his haircut in New Hampshire? And then dude, it was so funny. 3 years ago, I posted on Facebook. I was like, all right, so I'm quietly sitting for my haircut. Steve, my barber, is in the hardcore scene. It's tight. It's a hardcore barber shop. I used to go to another hardcore barber shop where like dudes from Rude Awakening used to cut hair. And I'm sitting there, and I see this guy. He's got a pompadour over his hair is white. He's got a kind of like, not a beer gut, but he's got like a belly on him. And I'm like writing this thing on Facebook, just like, I'm sitting there watching this guy get his haircut, and his voice, like, it's so unmistakably fucking Colin Campbell. And I was like, and I even described his figure, right? One of my buddies was in another gang growing up. He ended up shooting up heroin. Now he's sober as fuck, and he's a good dude. But almost died. And he tagged Colin, and I didn't realize this was when Facebook unlocked. Like, if someone tags a friend, and the friend can see it. If you have a certain amount of friends, it's fucking stupid. Like, my privacy settings were not up to snuff. But Colin commented, I was like, I don't have a beer gut. All right, I'm just a little overweight right now. And I'm just like, Colin fucking knocked me out with a microphone at Punk Rock Prom at All About Records in 2002. Like, smashed me in the face with a microphone and knocked me out. And I'm just like, oh God, I'm gonna get beat up by Colin again. You know? He started messaging me, and he's like, hey man, I'm a handyman. Like, if you need any work at your shop, let me know. And I had to politely tell him, like, hey man, I can't have you in my shop. Like, you're a prohibited person, dude. You've been to prison twice. But if I have anything going on that's not firearm related, not at a location where firearms are secured, I'll definitely let you know. We talk all the time. We talk occasionally. You know, at the time we talked a little bit more. But it was just funny, dude. It was like childhood shit. Just bringing it right back. And it's funny that someone that you like looked up to as a kid, that you were just like, man, this dude is fucking tough as shit. Had a fucking horrible life, produced really great music that spoke through you as a child, made you feel confident and made you feel proud of yourself and what you become. And he's getting his haircut at the same place. So it's just, and you see that all the time. I'm sure you've been to places, you know, food joints, barbershops, and bumped into people that you're like, holy fuck, like, that's where they're at.
Somebody, I do a Q&A every Friday, and somebody asked me, like, why do you like hardcore? And I think I listed a couple of reasons. I said it's aggressive, and it's accessible. You know, these people are your friends. They're your peers. Like, maybe they're your heroes, and maybe they're up on stage, but they're in the crowd after their set is over. They're talking to you. They're not big timing you. You know, I had a 20-minute conversation with Roger the last This Is Hardcore. You know, I went and bought some merch from I went and bought his book from the Agnostic Front booth. And we had like a 20-minute talk, and you know, he's there selling shit, you know, and that's arguably, you know, he's arguably, you know, one of the biggest people in hardcore, the biggest people in New York hardcore anyway.
Right.
You know, and they're your friends. They're the people you talk to. You know, I think I had this guy, Johnny, played drums in a band, Headwood. They were my heroes growing up. You know, they headlined the first show I ever went to. You know, and he hit me up last week asking about making some merch for them, you know, for an upcoming show. And it's like, that just doesn't happen.
Right.
Like, you know, like Tom Petty isn't calling you to make him some merch for an upset.
Well, he's dead, but I'm just kidding.
He's a good one. He's a good one for you know, on the Stern show. They used to play the Dead or Not Dead.
Yeah.
I knew he was dead.
Oh my God. Oh.
He may be a candidate for that, but so yeah, you have that accessibility. Like, these people are on your level. You don't get that with any other form of music.
I think you do with like underground hip hop. I think that's the other parallel. Not to discredit what you're saying. Yeah, we were talking earlier when we recorded an hour of a podcast, but we talked about hip hop. Hip hop is super influential in the hardcore community, super influential in the gun community, just like hardcore. And I remember hearing Jedi Mind Tricks for the first time. It was Straight Edge. It was Straight Edge New Year's Eve 2001. We used to have straight edge New Year's Eve, and we would get the grape champagne, and we would go to my buddy's house, and he was a drummer. He was a former drummer and lead singer of like this really successful local band that never went anywhere. But they were so good at the time. We used to have straight edge fucking New Year's, and it was wonderful. And we would listen. Everyone would bring music, and we would bring music that we heard from around the country. That's in 2000. That's when I heard Terror for the first time. Like someone was like, "Yo, I went out west to visit family, and I talked to some cousins that are into hardcore, and I fucking heard Terror. And here's an album." And we passed the CD around. We burned CDs for everybody. And that was like, holy fuck, Terror is West Coast. It is hard. It's awesome. Kids like us, all those cool vibes out there. We had friends from went to Philly, and they brought Down to Nothing to us, and we were like, this is fucking rad, you know. But I heard Jedi Mind Tricks for the first time, very first album of Jedi Mind Tricks, and I was like, holy shit, like this is a genre of music that I've never gotten into. I remember seeing Nas do one mic, and it was on MTV once, and I actually saw it, but it was like too violent, I guess, because they had like a riot scene against the police in the video. And I saw Nas one mic, and I was like, holy fuck, this is like not the shit that I see on MTV, which is just like big booty hoes and bad rap. Like this is like powerful shit. This is shit that is speaking from people's like fucking core, from their history, from slavery. You're just like, damn, this shit's hard. And then I saw like Jedi Mind Tricks, or not saw them, but heard them, and I was like, oh my fucking god. And I've always liked Wu-Tang, but we talked about like bullying and kids that were in an Insane Cloud Posse and Limp Bizkit. They also like Wu-Tang, and it kind of ruined Wu-Tang for me growing up because I associated Wu-Tang with these dudes that would fucking hurt me, you know? And but hip-hop, dude, hip-hop's so strong. And then you see the parallels in the hip-hop industry. You see Vinny Paz wearing a fucking Trapped Under Ice shirt, you know? Like, there's so many parallels between that, like, dark murder rap, hard-ass rap. And then you also hear Vinny Paz. You heard him in his new album that you posted the other day, which I forgot. I didn't have notifications for on Spotify, but he talks about an MPX in it. You know, his last album, he talks about a Hudson H9. You know, Vinny Paz is keeping up on the gun industry and what's new and what's hot. It's so fucking funny, though.
Songs, and you know that he actually is a gun owner. And I think I've heard people say he's like super into like conspiracy. Well, you know, just from the lyrics, he's into conspiracy theories, but he's kind of like a little bit of a prepper.
Absolutely. He's a white Muslim, right? So
he's super into guns because he doesn't trust the government, which I think is really in line with probably a lot of people that buy our stuff.
I mean, dude, people don't understand, like, he's from Philly. He's from an Italian background. He is from a community that is predominantly black Muslim. He became a Muslim. Like, there's all these fucking... You just don't know that the community you're in, but, I mean, he was into hardcore. He's into heavy metal. And you get all these fucking awesome parallels between the music scene and other industries. And, yeah, he probably low-key fucking follows a shit ton of gun pages. Because he likes that shit. You know, and I see that in the hardcore community too. But we've seen a lot of darkness in the hardcore community too. I knew dudes that used to run illegal machine guns when I was growing up, and these dudes did it to pay for college.
I think where the difference is between a lot of hardcore dudes and Paz is there are a lot of hardcore dudes that might have carried a gun. And a buddy referred to it as like beat down as like pistol in the waistband hardcore.
Right.
But like I feel like Paz is like a real enthusiast. That's the sense I get. Rather than just being like okay with guns, like a lot of hardcore dudes are.
Oh no, if you're name dropping Hudson H9 and other like popular guns of the time, like you're cognizant of what's going on in another industry. And you're bridging parallels to a modern day products, current products that your listeners that might be involved in that community go, holy fuck, Paz just said fucking Hudson, or he just said Sig Sauer, or, you know, like MPX. Like, you're not going to hear some mumble rapper or some shitty dude that, you know, maybe not shitty, but Houston Rap's awesome. But you might hear someone say, "Oh, Glock 9 or Glock 40 or whatever Llama." I mean, Paz used to drop like the trashy guns back in the day, like Llama and 44 Magnum. But now he's getting into like hyper specifics, and you're like, "Oh, damn, he's evolved as a lyricist, and he's paying attention to what's current now."
I'm pretty sure my ears aren't as good as they used to be, but I'm pretty sure you referenced 6'8" SBC in one of his recent tracks.
I wouldn't doubt it.
That's real niche.
Super niche. Do you think he caught a body?
He's real kind of body.
Yeah, I feel like he's smart as fuck. Like, I'm sure he's done some fucking heinous things. You can't rap about that all day long and not be hard as fuck.
He's have some experience.
Yeah, I agree. So, we got the hip hop parallels. So, like, where do you see your brand going? Do you see any evolution in the brand? I know you said you want to get into hard goods. I know that's super niche. If you ever need engineering help, I'm obviously here. I'm a mechanical engineer. But for apparel wise, like in your current trajectory, are you going to keep dropping that same aesthetic? Is there an evolution that you foresee in the future? Where do you want Albert Defense to go? And also, please talk about the name too.
So, Albert, originally this ties back to the hard goods thing, but Albert was my grandfather. He was a machinist. So I knew I wanted to do something before I knew what I wanted to do. So I kind of he was this person I looked up to, and then he was a machinist, and I thought maybe I might want to get into a hard good. And then, of course, if you're doing anything gun related, you just tackle defense or industries at the end of X. So it ended up as Albert Defense, and I squatted the domain name and the IG account. Not that it's something anybody else would think.
That's great, though. It's fucking awesome.
But I think it just worked out from like nobody else is going to do Albert Defense. It does well in Google because it's very unique.
Yeah, there's no other Albert Defenses. You're number one on Google search for Albert Defense.
Right. I've become Albert now. I just get referred to as Albert. I think that's my name.
It's okay.
That's where that came from. I don't have this burning desire to do a hard good. I think if I had a problem in my life and I thought maybe there was something that could be made to solve it, I'd go down that route.
Right.
But for the short term, I really want to keep doing what I'm doing. I think I've really found my voice recently. I kind of want to get away from more direct hardcore and band rips. That kind of like I made my bones with that stuff.
Right.
But I think I want to get more into original designs or designs that are, more loosely based on stuff. I think my last drop, so an example of that, it's a rip of an E-Town Concrete EP cover, but it's not something as familiar to the public as like Black Flag bars or Misfit Skull.
Right.
It's very niche. It's very New Jersey. So I think I'd like to go down that road. Make some stuff that's a little more general. Not to say that it isn't awesome for the people who are doing it, but I kind of want to take some of the super tactical stuff out of my designs.
Yeah.
I'm not particularly interested in doing put a pair of nods on something.
It's overused by everyone.
And it's if you love it, awesome. And some of that stuff has been really popular for me, but it's just not something that interests me anymore.
Is it part of your life, nods?
I mean, I used my PBS 14 for the first time in about a year last weekend.
Okay.
Mike from Kilo asked me to come out with him.
Hell yeah. Mike is the fucking nicest, most genuine human on earth.
So he lives about like 30 minutes away from me. So he asked me to come out and go for a night hike. And it was a little past my bedtime, but I'm glad I did it. It was a lot of fun. We had some other Jersey guys come out with us too, but
awesome.
He had it all scattered out. He knew where he was going. He easily could have been leading me into the woods to kill me.
No.
There'd be nothing I'd be able to do about it because I had no idea where he was. That's not a slight against Mike. I'm just saying.
No, he is such a sweetheart. I might have to bleep his name out. I don't know if his name is like private.
The last name.
The last name. Let me at 1 hour. We'll bleep out his last name. Mike is a sweetheart. Mike has been to my home. He spent time with me and my wife. He is. I think that night hike was actually inspired by me because I told him like the best things you can do with night vision in your free time is go on night hikes.
I mean, honestly, that's 99% of what I do with it. We have a lot of good trails by my house, and usually I just go by myself. I feel like if you like solitude, there's nothing more solo than going on a night hike.
Looking through a straw at your world. Yeah,
it's like you never feel more by yourself. I think
this is true. I've got a couple sets of nods, and me and my wife sit on the porch and we stargaze because you can see 1,000% more shooting stars with night vision.
But going back to your question, I have them, but no, they're not part of my life. I don't use them that often. The things that are part of my life are, a Glock 26, a J-frame, and like a Surefire handle and a whole flashlight.
That's Jersey. That is Jersey carry.
Yeah, right. Carry.
Freedom is a mindset.
Right. Like I have the shit because like if you're running like a gun merch page, to some extent you need to have some of it. You have to have shit.
Absolutely.
Well, it's all a lot of this is content based, and a lot of the content is gear based. But the stuff that I'm really interested in is the stuff I carry on my person.
Right.
Like I have a plate carrier, but it's a Spiritus low pro plate carrier, and it's like I don't really train with a chest rig all that often, if at all. I have a nice AR that I don't use very much. my reloading press is currently set to 9mm.
As it should right now.
I don't think I've touched it in 2 years, but I mean I've used it to reload. But I don't think I've adjusted anything. But that's the show about, and I think I feel better about it if the brand stuff, at least in the design thing.
Right. So there's going to be a slight evolution, and the reason why I asked, is it part of your life? Because not that I'm a bully, but when I see apparel companies post goon and shit and hood rat shit at night with my friends, night vision, I always go, do you own night vision? Like, I know that you're adding it to your brand aesthetic, but how much time have you spent under it? And that's not, dude, it's just apparel at the end of the day. It's merch at the end of the day. People are making things that are cool. So I'm not judgy, but, part of me is kind of like, have you played with it at least? If you're going to use it, incorporate in your designs. So it wasn't like a dig at you. It was just, is it a part of your life? And, I've seen your 14 that you post, so I knew it was part of your life. But yeah, it's overused. It's highly overused. I mean, shit, we have it on a shirt, but that's because the night vision that we posted on our shirt and the helmet, it's all New Hampshire companies. We got L3 Harris here in New Hampshire. We have OpsCore. We did like an Old Man on the Mountain, like tactical design shirt, just to highlight some of the quality that comes out of New Hampshire. But Yeah, it's overused, and I think your designs are fucking fantastic. I love the nostalgia behind a lot of them, but I'm like super excited to see what you do moving forward and creating your own aesthetic. And not that it wasn't not your own, but you built, like you said, you kind of built the foundation on hardcore and music and stuff like that, and now you're going to evolve and metamorphosize into you know, and that's important, dude. I think you did a really great job, because you have like even like trolling accounts that comment on your posts. You have like a really, really good diversity there. You got a lot of dudes that are into the music scene that are also into guns that are like, this is fucking rad. And you got a lot of people that have no fucking clue what they're looking at. That just
a lot of for Pantera stuff. So
I'm sorry that people ask for that. like Pantera, but not enough to. You're not Hot Topic, Albert Defense. You know, you're your own fruit. Everything's super like underground niche. You know, you're not. I'm surprised people are asking you to knock off Pantera when they don't even understand what you are kind of like showing influence of.
Right, they're into the gun stuff, and they understand that there's like a band influence on some of this stuff.
Yeah, so I'm super excited to see what you do moving forward. I think it'll be pretty fucking rad.
I'm excited to move forward.
If, you know, and for hard goods, I know that's not on your mind, but I don't think you are in any rush to get out of New Jersey. You are happy with, you know, what you're doing. You know, think of like New Jersey shit, dude. I know so many dudes in New Jersey that are just stifled. You know, they buy all this cool kit and all this shit, and it's nothing they can actually use in their everyday life. So definitely try to like come up with things that, you know, you could augment slightly your everyday life for some hard good that might make your life more convenient during the day, and just kind of stick with your niche that is your aesthetic, and, you know, come up with something fucking rad. We used to do a fucking speed loader holster back in the day for wheel guns. I know that the Neomag Rask is cool, but we actually did a double speed loader with adjustable retention that was like this tall. It was 2 cylinders. I had an aluminum mold cut. We used to custom book mold it and put a belt clip over it, and it would make contact with this webbing that we would shoot out the bottom, and you could carry 2 speed loaders inside the waistband next to your fucking revolver.
Nice.
And it was fucking rad. And people got so bummed when we took it off the website. Where's the double fucking speed loader? It's like, dude, it was actually super fucking rad, because we would run the HSKs. What are the ones where you have to like push and twist? But we'd run those, not the bumps, but the push and twist. And dude, I carried that for a while. I carried 2 fucking speed loaders and a revolver, because it concealed better than a magazine and a holster at the time. This was before like claws existed. So so you like your wheel gun, man. And we recently just had an epiphany for you, like how to like deeper conceal your stuff. So you ended up with a 3-hole position G code.
Actually, I went with a 4-hole.
4-hole.
Super deep.
Super deep.
Maybe, you know, I think with deep carry, it's a trade-off between raw speed and concealability.
Okay.
So I think with the 4-hole, I'm confident that if I reach for something on the top shelf at a supermarket, like I'm not gonna flash my shit to anybody.
Right.
I think it's a level of, theoretically, if I was to carry New Jersey, it's like a level of concealment that I'm comfortable with.
Right.
So, you know, it's a scale. Like, on the one hand, maybe my draw is going to be like a second faster, but with training, you can really make a lot of things work.
Yep.
And on the other side, you know, how many years are you going to get if somebody sees it?
This is very true. You have a much more stringent life. You know, I can go down to my local gun shop and buy a machine gun. You know, I feel for you. At the same time, you know, you love New Jersey. That's your home, and that's where you choose to be.
Yeah, I tell people guns aren't everything. I think I was on another podcast. I said, guns aren't a personality. They shouldn't be. They're very important. It's one of our most important rights as Americans, or anybody for that matter, no matter what country you live in. It's a human right. But again, like, it can't be everything. Like family, community, the things you're passionate about. All of those things that are important to you are in a state that has shitty gun laws. You just got to find a way around it. And there are ways around it. Obviously you're taking more risks than somebody that lives elsewhere, but there are ways to make it work.
Right.
And I'm not going to leave all that behind to have easier access to certain things.
True. Actually, thinking about your deeper concealment situation when you are practicing at the range, I was thinking, I can't remember how much distance is between the adjustable retention screws, or at least the adjustable retention screws that you have from the muzzle. But you could grind off muzzle all the way up to that first eyelet or adjustment screw or whatever it is, and grind up to that point so you can carry deeper concealment. But when you go for your draw, you end up, because like revolvers for me are always a concealment always thing. Like, you don't need a super fast elaborate draw to get it out. A revolver's supposed to be discreet. Like, I carry a revolver in the wintertime in my jacket pocket, loose, no holster, because if it's super cold and super heavy out, snowing, weather, terrible weather, I'm not gonna be able to get to my primary appendix gun. It's just not gonna fucking happen. You want one garment between you and your gun. But there's circumstances where it's super heavy fucking snow, it's shitty, and you're not gonna have that one garment. It's gonna be buried. I may be wearing a longer coat, Obviously I've purchased equipment and gear and jackets that make appendix more accessible when you need to. I'm rocking an MTHD anorak right now. I can unzip the side so that it's like a flap in the front, and I can just lift it and get to it. But that's not a super cold weather jacket. That's like a rainy, cold spring jacket or rainy, cold fall jacket. But so I carry a revolver in my pocket, and when I'm walking around, I have my hand, the revolver hold, right? Your hand's not on the gripper and the trigger guard. You're just kind of like gripping the whole gun. Like I do, yeah, like that, the claw. So, you walk around with the claw on it. If I go to a restaurant, I take my jacket off, and what I do is I put the revolver on the seat under my butt, so no one walking by, if they brush it, don't feel that weight, in the bottom of the jacket. And then at restaurant, I have my appendix, one layer, whatever, going out with my wife or whatever. So revolvers are super cool. But while we were talking, I was thinking about that Filipino hitman influencer who used to carry a Browning high power in a sack in his pants. And on his draw, he always carried a tucked-in shirt. And he wore a really long white tee. And the gun was actually between the white tee and the belt. And his draw, he would basically sweep his crotch and push the gun up, and the gun would shoot up, and he'd like pretty much catch it and go. And I don't know if you saw that Ed's Manifesto post like 6 months ago where this guy was doing this like, I don't have a gun, and he lifts his shirt up and rolls the wheel gun into the shirt and then goes like that. Well, you could do the same thing with like your style of carry with that deeper concealment where the grip is, only sticking out this far, so you're not digging for it. You could muzzle grind that holster, and so your draw could be pushing the muzzle. So if you have an exposed muzzle on your holster, you can actually push the gun out so it bumps it up a half inch, makes it easier to grab. People don't realize like Kydex is grindable. You can use a green pad on a Scotch-Brite pad on a sponge to soften the edges so it's not rough after sanding it. Put on a belt sander or whatever the fuck. Cut it with a hacksaw, sand it with some 1000 grit, and then shine it up. But modify your holsters to like what you want, how you can carry. Like, you're not saying don't illegally carry, but fucking freedom is a mindset, right? Like, if you have the right to defend yourself. Go ahead.
I hate to say it, it's so played out, but maybe it's come around in fashion. Better to be judged by 12 and carried by 6.
Right.
That's a funism, but it's true.
It's true. I mean, we won't talk about legalities or past history with legalities with firearms on this podcast, but if, for example, I play Call of Duty. I've been in a lot of games that have been on our streams on Twitch where we like pick up a rando and that gets grouped with us. And I have spoke with 5 gentlemen over the past 4 months that illegally carry firearms with serial numbers scratched off that are vocal about it when we're talking. They're like, oh, you want a gun? You know, we get talking because they're always hopping in a group and we're already kind of established. And like, oh, what do you guys do? You know, oh, we're gun industry dudes. Oh, tight. I have a fucking Glock, Gen 4 Glock that has a serial number scratched off, but I live in Philly, and you know, I have a family, and I haven't got my LTC yet. And my buddy sold me a gun, and I know it's illegal, but I carry it because, you know, there's shootings every night here, and I want to protect my family. I'm not into the gangbanger shit, but gangbangers exist in my neighborhood, and I can't afford to get out of my neighborhood. I carry an illegal gun. And you're just like, damn, you're really public and open about it. But 5 different gentlemen over the past 4 months, you know, and I don't say anything. I don't say, oh, that's illegal, bro. Because I just don't care. Like, that's your life. You live in a scenario where there's so much violence that dictates your everyday being. You need to do what you need to do for your family. What was that? What'd you say?
What a shame that they're forced to make that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Doing something illegal and protected.
It's like I would rather do something illegal that puts me in jail for 25 years if it means that my daughter can get to the school bus in the morning, or my wife can leave for work, or you know, I'm out walking my dog and my neighbor's not affected by gang violence. And it's a real thing. And you know, you get all these fucking keyboard warriors on the internet just like, well, that's illegal. Why would you do that? You know, you could get in trouble for publicly saying that over Call of Duty, which is true. Like, they're recording conversations. But it's like these people, I feel for them. I get it. You're in a situation where you would rather, like you said, be judged by 12 than carried by 6. Like, it's a real thing. And people don't realize that till they're in that situation or exposed to something or know someone that has been in that where they can actually feel some sort of grief or parallel or whatever. But I mean, you know, it's a real thing, and fucking kudos to them for wanting to protect themselves. And like, I've talked to dudes like, oh yeah, I just got rid of my gun. Like, I'm like a week out from receiving my LTC, and then I'm taking my paycheck and buying myself a Glock and some ammo so I can legally, all these people I've spoken to publicly all legally want to carry. And none of them were felons. None of them have an arrest record. None of them sell drugs. They're not your stereotypical, you know, thug type person. They straight up just want to protect themselves. But they're like, one guy was just like, they don't just like, you know, if I walked in that police station to get an LTC, they're not going to give it to me because of who I am and where I live.
Right.
And you're
if
like,
they can even get there. I mean, I remember Master Ray talking about wherever you have to go in Philly to get that is inaccessible by public transportation.
Right.
I don't know the details of that, but I remember bringing that. So, like, if you can even get there to get it.
Yeah, I mean, Vegas, dude. I got friends in Vegas that wouldn't get their LTC because you had to go down to Metro, and you'd have to stand in line behind hookers getting arrested and cocaine dealers, and you literally felt like a criminal standing in line to bail someone out to submit your paperwork for an LTC. Like, and like down in downtown Metro, like you couldn't go to your like local substation or hub, or it was downtown Metro, waiting in line behind hookers and violent criminals to submit your paperwork and get interrogated by the same people that are doing interrogations. You know, it's super toxic, but you know, I don't fault anyone for making decisions that regard protecting their family. Like, fuck, at that point, fuck laws. Do what you need to do to feel confident in your life that you are protecting your family.
Yeah.
So,
you know, everybody needs to make their own choice. I guess I guess all I want to do is kind of put it in people's heads now.
We are free-thinking people.
But I mean, I think for many good people, it's the thought doesn't even cross their mind. I remember, I don't know, before Murphy got elected in New Jersey, I was getting emails every day. These laws are only going to provide citizens. These don't affect criminals. And I think that was kind of when I was starting with Albert Defense, and there was something like, why are you still a law-abiding citizen? Maybe we need to think like criminals. It's these guys have a magazine that holds 120 rounds, and they think that their local police department is their friend and they're pro-gun, they're like them, but they need to adopt a criminal mindset. There's nothing morally wrong with anything that you're doing, but the people in charge don't view it that way.
Right.
So they think of you as a criminal. So you need to think of yourself as a criminal, and you need to do the things that a criminal would do. You need to be careful. You need to be careful who you talk to. You need to be careful what you post and what you say. And you need to be aware of who's around. You need to be careful how fast you drive. You need to make sure your taillights are in good order. You need to make sure the registration's up to date, the license is expired. All the shit that's going to keep attention away from you.
Right.
As if you're doing something.
Well, so you should always be that way. Cautious.
I mean, even the average person in New Jersey who isn't maybe aggressive with challenging these laws, like just driving to the range is kind of a gray area. They don't make the laws very clear. If your car has a trunk, if your car is an SUV, can you access the gun while you're driving?
Right.
Theoretically, in New Jersey, if you can access a gun in the ammunition for it while you're driving in the car, it's the same as if you're carrying a gun.
That's wild.
So a lot of guys will, lock them in the ammo boxes driving to the range, but technically the trunk of a car is inaccessible.
Right.
But if you don't own a car, you do. They also have laws about where you're allowed to stop on the range. So, you can stop for gas, but if you stop for something, your car breaks down, what do you do? So there are all these things, and they're gray. They're gray areas. Purposefully. So even when you're driving to the range, perfectly normal behavior. This isn't someone who's deciding to carry a handgun. This is just driving to the range. You need to drive this limit. If you get pulled over and they ask you where you're going, you need to have a plausible story that isn't the range.
Right.
You can't just trust that whoever pulls you over is going to be a gun guy and they're going to be cool. Even though you're just doing something as simple as going to the range, you can't think of it that way.
Exercising your freedoms, yeah, dude.
You have to think basically you have to treat it like you have a truckload of cocaine.
Yeah. And you shouldn't feel that way, ever, for doing something that is a constitutional right. Ever.
And honestly, probably 9 times out of 10 if a cop pulls you over when you're going to the range and, you have your shit in your trunk, it's not going to be a big deal. But that one time it isn't. It could cost you a couple of years.
Yep. Yeah, that's the unfortunate truth in your state, man.
But, everybody out in Pennsylvania has kind of shake heads.
Yeah, I mean, dude, even New Hampshire, we still have an archaic law that hasn't been overruled. You're not allowed to have a loaded rifle in the car.
Okay.
Within reach. Within accessibility to the driver. And that stems from a fish and game law, actually. It's about poaching. It's anti-poaching. You're not allowed to have loaded shells and a shotgun in the front seat. You're allowed to have your shotgun, like I bird hunt, so you're allowed to have your side-by-side open breech in the front seat with 2 shells in your hands ready to drop in the tube to hop out and shoot something. But you're not allowed to have it loaded in the vehicle, right? Same down to rifle. You know, even if you're traveling on a highway, it's not a hunting rifle, it's a sporting rifle, it's a fucking PDW, machine gun, whatever. Anything that falls under, NFA or rifle, it's illegal. But I don't think cops know that law. It's a fucking fish and game law, you know, but fish and game have more jurisdiction in New Hampshire than state police do. They can take away your house. So it's pretty interesting. Same concept, even though we're like live free or die state, we have that one archaic, stupid fucking law. And we're just like, great. Like I can keep a AR pistol in the front seat with a 60-round drum, and that's legal. But my SBR Sig Rattler that I keep 20-round mags in is illegal. Like that's stupid. Why the fuck does this exist? So, you know, we still have, like, that's like the one shitty law in New Hampshire that I can actually say sucks. But everything else is pretty fucking free. But yeah, dude, New Jersey is tough. I mean, even like as a free stater going and traveling with firearms through New York, I won't drive through New York and New Jersey. Like, I will find a way around. I mean, it's inevitable. I have to go through New York. But FOPA protects us. Right? FOPA is the Protection Act for firearms for transitory travel through transitionary states. So transitory states. So, you know, technically you're legally allowed to pass through these states, and then each of these states have individual laws that dictate how you pass through them. And if you're from Florida moving to New Hampshire, driving with your guns in a U-Haul, and even though they're not accessible, you know, New York says that ammo has to be locked separate from your firearm. What if you just have ammo cans next to rifles in a U-Haul? Like, they're inaccessible. You're not, hold on, let me unlock this fucking U-Haul and get my guns out and start a mass shooting. Like, how the fuck? But no, you can get 25 years for that. You know, even, you know, FOPA protects you by law because you're following federal transitory laws. But on the state level, it's happened, dude. Like, a guy was deer hunting in upstate New York and, you know, pulled the magazine, you know, 5-round magazine out of his bolt gun and left around the chamber. You know, or maybe I think he was hunting out of state and he drove through New York and he pulled over. He was being a fucking good citizen. They're like, oh, you got guns? Yeah, we went on a hunting trip in Pennsylvania for deer. We shot a deer. You know, rifles in the back. You know, if you want to check it, they're unloaded. The state police opens the fucking action. And there's a fucking chambered round on a hunting rifle when he was with his family. Dude's in jail for 25 years. That was a big deal.
I didn't think he was doing anything wrong.
Hey, he was just, he didn't think he did anything wrong. It was a fucking tiny little mistake that he forgot to pull one out of the tube. You know, in New Hampshire, if you do that, it's like a $250 fine. You lose your hunting license. Like, it's not life altering. It's you fucked up. This is your consequence. Slap on the wrist. You can't hunt deer the rest of the season because that's like a poaching law. They actually got rid of that recently. In New Hampshire, if you had a loaded shotgun or rifle leaning up against a tire of your vehicle while you unload your gear, it used to be a crime, a finable offense. It wasn't like jailable, right? But yeah, this guy, I forget the name of the gentleman in New York, but I think he's still serving time right now for just traveling through the state on a hunting trip with his family and taking responsibility for a round in the chamber. And they threw the book at him to try to make an example of him, and nothing. You know, he's fucked. So
it's arguably worse for guys traveling through. Somebody from, like you mentioned the wall, like somebody from New Jersey would probably know. I better stick this shit in with the winter coats.
Right.
Like somebody from Florida who has, you know, arguably not been infringed upon much, you know, in his entire life, would never even think of it.
But it comes down to like right to declare firearms, right? Some states you have a legal obligation to declare your your load. And then you have states where you don't have to, and federally you don't have to declare what you're carrying as long as you are following FOPA and it is legal in what you're doing. But you know, you have that good Samaritan in you. If you're a good conscious person, you're just like, oh yeah, no, I mean, I have guns, I'm just moving to a new place. And they're just like, oh, you get some bootlicker fucking asshole new cadet cop that's like, oh, I can get a fucking easy arrest here. And you know, and you talk to some of the old guard cops in some of these places, and like, these are the guys that are fucking us over, making people not respect us. You know, they're creating that toxicity because they're trying to hit a quota or flex hard to their homies or whatever. And it happens fucking everywhere. But I mean, I'm gonna be 100% honest with you. New Hampshire's cool. I've been pulled over in New Hampshire. You know, I had a gun in my glove, in my like cup holder, and I had a radar detector, which is also illegal in New Hampshire. And I threw him under the seat after getting pulled over. And the cop actually saw me like position something under the seat. I don't know how he did, but he did. He saw. He goes, "What did you throw under your seat?" And I was like, "Man, you're fucking trained up good to see what I do. A pistol and a radar detector." He's like, "Oh, that's why you pulled over before I even pulled out." I was like, "Yeah, dude, you lasered me." Like, I was fucked. And he was like, "Can I just see your gun permit?" I was like, "Cool. You know, it's in my back pocket. I'm just gonna reach for it and lean away from you. You can, you know, whatever. I'll keep my hands visible. You know, I'm always cautious. We're both tattooed dudes. You know, you get pulled over, you want to do the right thing. And we're always worried, you know, like, oh, do I look like a fucking hoodlum? Like, are they gonna get all super itchy because I've got visible tattoos and whatever? But yeah, cool, dude. Leave your gun there. I had a cop like, leave your gun there. Don't want any extra paperwork. And I like scoffed at him, like, yeah, okay, buddy. Like, you saying that you're gonna shoot me? Like, fuck off. But yeah, dude, it happens. But I wouldn't, if I was out of New Hampshire. New Hampshire is honestly the only place I feel safe to declare shit in the car, because there's nothing a cop can do, and they're just cool. You know, I've been pulled over and cops are like, "Oh, what do you got in the back seat?" You know, I got machine guns folded up in the back. Yeah, I got a belt-fed PKM in the back seat. Oh, that's fucking cool, dude. Holy shit, you know. But you go anywhere else, and it's like, I mean, I drove from Massachusetts with a belt-fed machine gun in the back. You know, I picked up my machine gun in Mass, my PKM, and it's the only place I could store it was in the bed of my truck that's, you know, visible. It's got a truck cap. And, you know, locked up the ammo in my drawers. I had a fucking belt fed on the bipod sitting in the back seat with empty links next to it, you know? And I'm just like, I'm fucked. I'm going to get pulled over. I'm going to get shot in the mouth. It's happening. But, no, like, legally, you got to know your rights, but not everyone's going to fucking look up their rights in every state that they transitory through. Culture for you, I mean, outside of you. What? Sorry?
I'm just saying, like, if you're not constantly thinking about your rights, because you live in a place where they're not imposed upon, it just doesn't cross your mind.
No. You're just trying to do the right thing overall, and you get fucked trying to be nice, be good, be kind. You know, do you have a lot of dudes that you're surrounded with locally that have the same mindset as you, that respect your choices, that, you know, are there other people in your circle that are gun owners in New Jersey, and how do they, you know, feel about these things?
Honestly, I don't think it's common. So, like, I have some friends that are, you know, basically, let's put it simply, like, they're felons, and they have guns and they do carry them.
Right.
But I feel like a lot of my gun enthusiast friends don't have this same kind of mindset. My scumbag friends do.
Scumbag, we all have those people.
My scumbag friends have the same mindset that I do, but not necessarily the gun enthusiast friends. So, like, whenever I go to the range, I hear a lot of people complaining about the laws and complaining about the things that they have to do.
Right.
So, I guess that I don't discuss it with them, but I mean, that tells me that, you know, they're following these things and that they're complaining about them. But to be honest, as gun-wise in New Jersey, I keep myself.
Absolutely.
My friends are hard. Since my friends are the things, I don't make friends at the range. I go there and do my thing.
Right. You have to have a certain level of privacy in a state where you have such a taboo stigma behind firearms, and you can't trust anybody. You can't trust a fucking person. I'm from Massachusetts, dude. Like, people, when I turned 21, I got my Class A concealed, and I got a gun. And like 3 months later, after applying for it, and I carried a gun concealed to the bar. Right, and you can't do that, and you can do that in Mass. You just can't drink. New Hampshire, you can be hammered fucking drunk and carry a gun. God forbid you ever use it hammered fucking drunk, they will throw the fucking book at you. But you are allowed to be belligerently drunk and carry a firearm. But Massachusetts, man, like, when I told my friends I went to like a bar, and they're like, "Are you drinking?" "Nope, not drinking tonight." "Oh, cool. So what's up?" I'm just like, "Oh no, I'm carrying a gun. That's why I'm not drinking." Like, I just can't. I don't want to get in trouble. I don't want to make the wrong decision. I don't even want a beer in me because cop smells even the essence of alcohol, and they're gonna fucking beat the fuck out of me, kill me, whatever.
Yeah, that sounds fun.
Yeah. So, and they're like, "Well, why would you carry a gun if you can't like party with us?" It's like, because right now I value my life and my safety over getting drunk at the bar with my friends. I am choosing a right that I believe in because I can still not get drunk and go to the bar and enjoy myself with you guys. But I was almost like ostracized because I chose firearm over getting drunk and driving home, right? All these people, I don't know about you, but like, I'm from a town where I've lost 25 or 26 friends since I graduated high school in 2006. To drunk driving, suicide, murder, rape, murder, a lot of suicides, a lot of overdoses, drunk driving, like horrific drunk driving accidents, a lot of fucking people. It's Memorial Day. Like, Matt Gallagher, one of my buddies, was in Iraq, and they had this thing going around their fucking camp where they would put blanks in M16s and pop blanks inside bunks to scare dudes. Someone was unhappy. He was a super young, successful sergeant. Put a fucking round in the mag with the blanks and shot him in the face. Just stupid shit, dude. I've had some of the smartest dudes I've ever met in my entire life hang themselves in their mom's basements because they just had depression. And mental health is fucking huge. I mean, and I feel like there's a lot of mental health issues. Like, it's not a bad stigma for the fucking hardcore industry or hardcore scene, but the realest dudes I've ever met are in the hardcore scene. Also, the most troubled dudes are in the hardcore scene. It's an outlet for pain and abuse and other things. I'd never had that in my life growing up. I came from a decent family that worked very hard to make sure that, like you said earlier, you were not sheltered, like borderline sheltered. Like, you didn't experience violence and all this other stuff. I didn't either, other than hockey and like school stuff. But there's a lot of rough dudes that go into hardcore and enjoy almost to a sexual level what you can accomplish in a pit. There was this chick that used to like literally, I don't want to talk about on a stream, but she was very sexually aroused from going in a pit and getting fucking hit. And she was sexually abused her whole life. And so you do have those two polar opposites. You get the people that are experiencing certain things for the first time. You got people that have experienced it their whole life, and it's an outlet. But yeah, a lot of illegal guns growing up, dudes running guns and stuff like that. But again, freedom is a mindset. We're in a different age now. We keep our path. I was a good kid. But I mean, going full circle, I mean, dude, you're doing a great fucking job with your apparel. I'm excited to see your evolution over time. Are you going to keep, I know that you want to do more like original designs, but are you going to continue with that same East Coast punk, oi, hardcore aesthetic, but in your own voice a little bit more?
Absolutely. I mean, that's me, no matter what.
Yeah.
It's still going to have a huge influence. It's been a constant in my life since I was a little kid, so it's always going to be there. I think what I'm getting away from is it being so obvious.
Right.
So, it's still going to be influenced by that stuff, but it's not going to be so direct. And not to sound like an elitist or anything, but it's probably maybe going to be based on stuff that like not everybody's familiar with.
Good.
And maybe some of it might not be based on hardcore at all. And it's, I certainly have done some of that. Like one of my most popular designs is the Defend Pizza stuff. That has absolutely nothing to do with hardcore and everything to do with New Jersey. So, I mean, there'll undoubtedly be more stuff like that. Yeah, I'm just interested in expressing myself. I think ultimately my goal is if someone does meet me in real life, and I try to maintain a level of privacy online, but I have no problem talking to people in real life. I have a couple of customers who have met me at shows. If someone meets me, I want them to say like, yeah, that makes sense. Like based on the apparel I bought, based on the shirt I have, it makes sense that guy.
Right.
I think that's my opinion.
That's awesome. I mean, that's the way that you gotta stay transparent. People do enjoy like meeting the creators. Privacy is important, dude. Honestly, if I could do it different, I would. I'm not gonna lie. I'd like my privacy. I'm not. I answer a lot of questions. People recognize me. I've been recognized in Europe and shit, and I don't like that. It's not me. I'm just like, oh, cool, nice to meet you. Yay, I'm on vacation. Like, what's up? Let's talk. But I don't. It's almost like I had to step up and help out with the face of my company because we make plastic buckets for guns. If someone asks, what do you do? What is your profession and what do you do in the most simple, fucking stupid way possible? I make plastic buckets for guns. How do you make plastic buckets for guns sexy enough that people are engaged and want to continue to pursue purchasing things from your web store?
I think less so than you. Yes, you are making plastic buckets for guns, but if I do say so myself, you're making very good plastic buckets for guns.
Thank you.
For something like me, it's a lifestyle brand. I mean,
right.
Functionally, there's absolutely no difference between my shirt and another shirt. It's all about what's on it. And, I have a background in traditional marketing. This stuff is all what we might refer to as aspirational marketing. Like, people are buying this stuff because they want to be something. They want to buy into something. They want to buy into a lifestyle. And I think Corey does it better than anybody, I'd say. And not to say, when I say this, I guess maybe it could be construed as offensive, but I don't mean it that way at all. Like, they're buying into him.
Absolutely.
It's less of, the shirts are awesome, the designs are awesome, but they're buying into him. And I think it's difficult to maintain your privacy while doing that. I feel like I walk a pretty good line. I think people know what I'm about, and they kind of have a sense of what my day-to-day life is, from stories and things that I do post, like without ever having to actually appear on camera.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So I think the struggle there is that it gets boring and run out of ideas. But that's the challenge for sure. But like working as like a marketing guy in Manhattan, this kind of culture, this lifestyle is not compatible with the people I work with.
Absolutely not. But I think you're doing a great job, dude. You're doing the AMAs and you're making it more personal, like you did the scale a week ago. That was cool. You have that secret that people get to learn a little bit about you without learning your face and whatnot. And I hadn't listened to any of your podcasts. I didn't know what your voice sounded like. I didn't know what to expect. But you have that kind of allure to the brand where it's like, all right. And a lot of people are like that, dude. Tons of people are like that. I mean, I have other people on the podcast that have worn balaclavas and hid their faces. I have people that won't go on the podcast that aren't, OPSEC operators that just straight up like, oh, I don't want to go public. And it's like, okay, cool. Like, hide yourself. We can still do a podcast. You just hide your face,
I compromise. I did not want to wear a balaclava. I felt like, listen, there's on one hand, there's maintaining your privacy.
Yes.
On the other hand, you don't want to act like you're so important that it's a life and death situation, like hiding your face. So,
right.
This is my compromise. I do post pictures of myself, but I mess with like depth of field, so like I'm not in focus and
right.
Shit like that.
So they have that essence of Tim.
They know I'm a person. They know this isn't just like a holding company.
Right.
Trying to do a money grab. But
this worked out perfectly. It's almost like my shirt is a continuation of you, right? You're down here have this little like cutaway on the video, and I know you people can't see it. Tim was trying to rock the Gangland vibe where you're in the darkness in the back. Your computer light is actually illuminates your T-zone and your features actually quite strongly. So it worked out that my camera cell kind of covers you up, because like right now I can see you and I can see very vividly how you look. And someone on the street, if they were actually watching, would be able to maybe potentially ID you. So this actually worked out perfectly. You got that spooky ass basement vibe. I wish in frame they could see those are hockey sticks on the left hand side of the screen. That was a very like hockey is a big East Coast thing. But you know what, dude? I think you're doing all the right things. I really do. Excited to see that evolution. You're right about Corey. Like, Corey has that cool ass vibe. He's a music elitist back in the day. He's the guy that would straight up, he's honest to a fault, just like I am. He would straight up just be like, yo, that band sucks. Why the fuck do you listen to that trash band? You're just like, oh man, I really thought they were cool. Like that's how he was on like B9 boards, and he was in the hip hop industry. And I was recently at an event and there was a bunch of young people there, like early 20s, and they put, like you said, he's like that quintessential, like he's done it, right? And they put him on this pedestal. They're like, oh well, Corey said this and Corey said that. They worship him to a degree, not like spookily worship, but what he says is to them is fact, and if it strays from the path, then oh well, Corey wouldn't like that. And you're just like, not to discredit these people, but I know, again, I remember Corey from back in the B9 boards. I won't repeat what I've heard Corey say to me for the very first time in front of my wife at SHOT Show for the first time we were meeting like 8 years ago. But Corey is an old school hardcore dude. He's just like that grimy, raw type of cat that has an unadulterated, truthful vibe. And like I see through it. I know exactly who he is and where he came from and what he does. But these kids like fucking put him up on a pedestal, and I'm just like, no, like we're all shitty dudes at the end of the day. We're all grimy dudes that used to get into music and fucking not shower for 2 days and go to shows and hit like 3 or 4 shows and just. We're music elitists. Like we would talk down to people that listen to fucking Mudvayne and all the butt rock radio System of a Down trash. You're just like, there's nothing complex about this music. There's nothing emotional about it. They're fucking selling an image to make money. Whereas like hardcore and everything, you're just like, oh damn, this is like someone's been fucking fucked up, abused, sexually abused, their life sucks, and this is their outlet for feelings. And you listen to music and you feel emotion through music. You don't feel that for fucking radio music. It doesn't sell. It's not sexy,
I think recently over the last maybe honestly like the last year, with a handful of shows that we have had, there's been like a mixing of like Albert Defense with my personal life. You know, and there are more people in the hardcore and punk scene here that know what I do. So I find myself giving advice more often to people who are in the years and may not even know them at all.
Right.
So I've been doing a lot of that. That feels good because I feel like I'm getting people involved in it.
Good. Fuck yeah. And we both do our part to like introduce people to music as well. On our Instagram, ANR Design Instagram, we have the highlights reel under the bio. We answer questions. I have it categorized, but we have a music tab. We have 3 different Spotify playlists. We have the ANR, the original ANR jams list, which is like hardcore metal, death metal, you know, integrity. Like people in the gun industry who are super religious, like, that's Satan music. Well, yeah, it is. It is. Fuck it. Yeah, well, let's be honest, it is. You know, I have a beats one, which is like 80s through modern day hip hop, murder rap, underground rap, stuff that people don't ever hear on the radio. That's, you know, something that has shaped part of my life. And then pop punk, dude. Pop punk's super important. Like, pop punk is summer to me. It's the lighter vibe. We're out of the dreary, dismal fucking East Coast winters, and, you know, it just feels fresh and new, like spring. And I feel like we both have very similar aesthetics, and we both follow similar bands. You have your own Spotify playlist that you can find. Do you have that link on your Instagram too?
No, but if you just, it's indexed in Google, so you can just Google Albert Defense Radio. It's indexed in Spotify, so you can just search for it there as well. You'll find it. Honestly, it's kind of like a vanity thing for me. It's like, yeah, I sold X number of T-shirts last month, but how many people are following this? You know, so it feels cool to put my opinion on music out there.
Oh yeah.
Also, I think it's good to give some shine to some new bands. So I throw all my friends' shit on there. I throw shit I'm working on there. If I hear something new and I like it, I put it on there. So it's pretty unwieldy. It's like an 18-hour playlist. But I think it's, if you sort it from like oldest to newest, by being added, you can get a lot of new stuff at the end.
Cool.
It's a good place to check that out.
That's awesome. And, you know, again, music is great. Warm and Fuzzy Beats, dude. Warm and Fuzzy has his Beats playlist. Some of the newer stuff, it's a lot of like Houston and a lot of like Texas-based stuff, but his Spotify, dude, he's got like 20 or 30,000 subs to his channel, and he's actually getting SoundCloud artists that get a Spotify, hit him up and be like, can I be featured on your playlist? Like, he's gotten his playlist to that point, and that's super rad that someone who does a apparel merch company in the gun industry, you know, who was a deployed person who created a Beats list for himself, something for himself to listen to, you know, when you're away and stuff like that, to get your playlist to the point where you're influencing people. People want to be part of that playlist. And I mean, you probably heard it, but I've had people hit me up just being like, man, like, I've hit tough times and I listened to one of your playlists, and some of the music I've never heard of spoke to me and really appreciated it, and, you know, got me through some tough shit with my family or whatever. And music's so important. I think it's just so much, like, as much as people think the gun industry is super fucking cool and rad and badass, like, it's also super boring and, you know, stale and static, and there's not, it's like Bibles and fucking country music. No, it's not. It's not farmer emo. Fuck.
The good thing about the playlist is, I think you probably experienced this. People of a certain age, i.e., our age, they'll come to me and they'll say, like, man, hardcore sucks now. You know, all these kids are hardcore. I say, hey man, check out the playlist. There's a ton of new hardcore. What bands do you like? And they'll tell me, like, they'll give me like, oh, I like Madball, and I'll give them like 3 new bands they should listen to if they like Mad Dog. So like, I like Integrity. Check these guys out. So I think it's done a lot to maybe open the eyes of some older guys that there's really awesome stuff going on in hardcore right now.
Yeah.
That's my favorite part about it.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of still stuck in the older years a little bit because I've been out of the scene for so long and I haven't been keeping tabs on new stuff. I mean, I do listen to stuff like Knocked Loose. I think is like one of my favorite bands right now because I like Code Orange Kids when that came out, and I like Trash Talk and Converge. But Knocked Loose is fucking killing it. And then I grew up on Warriors, which is the most savagely emotional, fucking violent sounding shit. And Knocked Loose is influenced Knocked Loose quite a bit. And then someone recently introduced me to Mil-Spec, which is fucking awesome.
Mil-Spec is awesome.
Like fun, dude. It's like fun hardcore. So I mean, there is a lot of new stuff coming out. You influenced the first few bands on the pop punk playlist. Thank you for sharing those bands with me. I just got to that point where I was like, yeah, I need to make a pop punk playlist. And there's a bunch of pop punk that I didn't know that existed at all. And I kind of did a deep dive after you gave me those bands, and I found some other bands that are like, man, this is fucking good. I'm gonna throw in the playlist because I just want to listen to it now, you know? So pop punk isn't fucking pussy music. Most of the dudes in pop punk bands are hardcore dudes. They just want some variation. I mean, dude, and it's funny how dynamic like hardcore bands are. I mean, look at American Nightmare, Give Up the Ghost. Have you seen his synth project?
No, I have not.
Okay, I forget the lead singer's name. I believe he only has one hand. I think he was born with one hand.
That cat's guy.
Yeah, right. And he and I mean, do you listen to Give Up the Ghost like American Nightmare?
American Nightmare, Give Up the Ghost was never really my thing, but I mean, I listen to them as much as anyone.
All right, so we grew up like Have Heart. Like I went to like the first Have Heart show, you know, and they opened for Youth Attack and shit like that. But dude, you gotta listen to Cold Cave. Cold Cave. It's his synth 80s project, and it is fucking amazing. It's one of those things where you're just like, oh my god, this is like David Bowie and synthwave 80s all rolled up into one. But this is your side project? You're one of the most emotionally violent dudes on stage I've ever seen live. But you're in a synth 80s band. It's amazing.
Okay. Have you ever heard of Mind Force?
Yes, I have heard Mind Force.
Mind Force fucking rips, but Jay Pina, the singer, and some other dudes, over COVID, so they released these in 2020. They did a band called Pillars of Ivory.
Okay.
It's hardcore mixed with some beats.
That's cool.
And some rapping over it.
It's like Cold World vibes, or?
Yeah, kind of.
Okay.
Absolutely, yes. But they released them as 20-minute songs. So their demos they released as like 20-minute single tracks, so you can't skip. But they're fucking awesome. They're both in the Albert Defense playlist.
Cool.
But I definitely recommend checking those out. But that's another example of like hardcore kids branching out into something that's a little bit different.
Yep.
With an awesome result.
Energy, dude. Energy is pop punk. It's a Massachusetts thing. Energy came out with a 6-album LP that is Children of the Dead, and it's like Beach Boys inspired. Like, I met this girl and she was dead. Like fucking 60s, 50s, the doo-wop shit, Beach Boy vibe. But it's like horror themed, and it's like I went to kiss her and her face fell off and shit like that. But it's really funny, and it's just a side project that they thought was fucking rad. And so you get some of those cool spin-offs that, my wife, she's into pop punk. We pretty much started dating because she's like, I love Title Fight, and I was like, Title Fight rules. And she's like, she literally said to me, her first message to me back was like, are you some hardcore tattoo douchebag, or are you like a good dude? And I was like, look, I think I'm an honest dude. I'm not one of those dudes that goes to shows and just tries to pick up chicks and whatever and goes to shows and gets into fights. Like, I enjoy music. You know, we went on our first date. She's like, cool. I think the first thing I said to her was like, thumbs up to Title Fight or something like that, you know. And she introduced me to that Energy album that didn't even exist because I liked Energy back in the day, but I kind of like lost touch with Energy. And she's like, have you heard this? And I was like, no, this is fucking rad. And it's like our Halloween pastime now is to throw that album on and jam out to it. So,
nice tradition.
Yeah, dude, music's fucking cool. Music's super cool. Yeah, I think we could do this for hours though. It's been 2 hours. It's actually been 3 hours. Almost 3 hours. So we'll have to do like a part 2 at some point when you're working on some new merch and some new stuff, and we can kind of revisit where the direction of Albert Defense is going. And, you know, maybe we can dig into some bands and stuff that we haven't found yet and talk music again. And I'm excited to see how you progress with your limited access to firearm technology in the great state of New Jersey. But I'm excited, dude. I'm really excited for you. And I'm really happy for your success and the people that are promoting and representing your stuff just out of like sheer respect for the brand. I think that's super cool. So
thanks, Alex. I really appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely, dude. Thank you for taking the time and coming on. This was episode 10. Did I say episode 9 earlier? I might have. This is episode 10 of the ANR Design Unholstered podcast. Our guest today was Tim of Albert Defense, and we look forward to seeing what you do. And we'll definitely have you on again, and we're definitely going to have to link up and go to a show or something soon.
Yeah, hit me up with the deets for that June show.
Yeah, dude, you can stay at my house for that show. It'll be super easy. You come up, it's like 40-minute drive from my house, and we can shoot in the backyard and scoot out to that show and go. I'm gonna like book a box seat so we can like watch, because the cool thing about Hampton is they have like it's only like shit, dude. It's only like 40 feet from the stage, but there's like a mezzanine like boxes. I'm gonna try to just like book a box for like, you know, $100 because it's fucking madball. You know, book a box and we could just sit up there and literally just watch it from like at the angle. It feels like you're only like 20 or 30 feet away, and it's like, okay, I'm not gonna die, and I can enjoy the music and watch the pit and watch 110-pound lanky dudes crush each other's skulls, because those dudes sneak up on you these days. So
Yeah, man.
What was that?
They'll kick you in the knees.
Oh yeah, dude, or you'll get that random fist and they hit hard. So anyway, thank you everyone for listening. It's a long one, but you know, it's a topic. It's topics that speak near and dear to both of us and have influenced our brands. I mean, I'm sure you can see it, but there's a lot of that community aesthetic in our what we put ourselves out as a brand here. And I'm gonna have to link you up with Justin, our operations manager. He's from the rurals of New Jersey as well. He's a little bit older than both of us. He's 37, 38. I don't know. He's old. He's a grandpa. But dude, same vibe. Like owned a tattoo shop in Philly. Was from Jersey. And I was like, dude, do you follow Albert Defense? He's like, no, I've heard of him. I was like, nah, dude, he's from Jersey. He's like the same like background as you. And he was like, God damn it, I have to ping him and see if we've ever hung out before, because he's cool as fuck. So, all right, man. Well, thank you so much. I'm gonna stop recording, but we'll call it there.